All right, so hello, Internet. Welcome to yet another programming stream inspired by the talk What Programming is Never About. At this point, you should know that it's not about the code, it's about the problem solving with the code. And we are continuing the development of an open source text editor developed just in C and using the library SDL2. Which will eventually be replaced with my own things. I thank the people that are always here, that are always present. Thank you very much for supporting this. And let's get started. I got some new lighting equipment, so you guys can see me no matter what time of the day it is. In the past, if the sun went down, then you will not see me at all, and that was pretty depressing. I also got a new microphone, but I'm not gonna try it out until next time because I have to test it first. And I didn't want to test now, I just want to start streaming. Okay. So why don't we just go ahead into the stream folder and check out what we have currently. If we run the application, here we go. You'll notice that we can start typing things, as always, with a new font, like last time. Hello, Internet. We are developing the next generation of text editors. Unlike other text editors, this one can wrap around a text box. Okay, that is supposed to be a thing already. Okay, so you see that we have this kind of nice little word wrapping thing, because last time what we did spend our time on was, if I type again the word imagination here, I start going over the line boundary because I made a text box even though it's invisible. So the moment I type something, it will go over to the next line. Okay, so what happened was I am in my code for this to work. I go over to, let me close the application here. Will you close? Thank you. Okay, so in this part over here, have a look at my mouse. On this section of the update loop, right, we have move word to next line if the line is too full. So I'm just doing a simple computation where I say, okay, so give me the line width, the width of the line. If it's bigger than the width of the text box, then that means I have to find that overlapping word. Okay, and then when I find that overlapping word, let me go ahead and type things here real quickly. Okay, so every time a frame happens, every time I type something in, I'm computing the line width, and the moment it is bigger than the text box, again the text box is invisible, I go ahead and clear whatever the overlapping word is, and I copy it or transfer it over to the next line. Okay. That doesn't mean that we're done. Okay, we do have yet another issue, which is what we're going to deal with today. When I backspace, I am backspacing here. What happened? Well, I can't go back to the first line, okay? Because my program is not handling that. I am not checking what happens when I backspace into a second line, right, or a third line, and I want to go to the previous one because now the line width, right? The entire set of letters or the entire set of glyphs that's on the text buffer can now fit in one line again. Let me say that again. So if I'm backspacing, okay, I will reach a point here where I can fit everything that I'm typing is just a single line, okay, but I'm not making that check. Okay, so I have to make that check so I can clear whatever it is that's on the second line because it can fit on the first line again, and make that happen. So that's what we're going to focus on, and then we'll continue developing a text editor as we always try to do. The chat is talking to me. Let's see. Capulata, hey man. Dusk, how's the chocolate wine? Well, unfortunately, I ran out of chocolate wine. It's a very sad story. All I have is regular old, dry red wine. The boring stuff, the thing that doesn't excite me at all. But it's what I have, so it's what I have to deal with. Unless you guys don't mind me just running to the store and then coming back later with some chocolate wine, but that would take a while. So. Mm. Okay. Put on some music. Okay, so here we go. So we have that issue that we're gonna solve, but even before that, I want to go back. I wanna go a few streams back and talk about the text renderer that I'm using. I hope you guys remember that. Hold on, let me open it up here. txt .c. Okay. txt.c is my quick and dirty bitmap font renderer. Okay. And what's happening with that is, let me go and open up the very sophisticated paint application here. Okay. I'm gonna try and do it as we did last time, and turn this into go. Okay. So when you're compiling, right? Compiler. Let's call it CC, and I pass in my flags, right? And then I start saying main.c text. Okay, gotta make this bigger. Text renderer.c. I don't know what, texture loader.c, right? And then you output into the text editor, right? There you go. Whoa, what are you doing? Okay. So you have that. Now, what really happens here is, and let me try and make some lines or some arrows, for each one. A preprocessor runs for each file or translation unit. Okay. So when you run the preprocessor, if this file has like a lot of pound includes, so let me go here. Like this is a pound include here. It says include the text that's inside this file. Then it's going to go ahead and include it. And then over here, it's also going to include other files. It's going to include other files. And the preprocessor runs every time for every single file that you specify. Okay? So we effectively have 1, 2, 3 translation units. Okay? Now, why does that matter? It matters because I turned off the music actually, because even if I put it lower, I really enjoy the music and I'm not gonna concentrate as much. So feel free to put on your own playlist. Maybe I'll put it back later when I'm programming. Anyway, so the preprocessor runs for each file a translation unit, and what I really want right now, especially for development, is to only have, let me type in here, I only want a single translation unit when developing, in order to compile faster. Now obviously many of the people here probably have seen this. If you watch other programming streams, this is a common thing to do. Handmade Hero sort of made that more popular. I used to do it a little bit before as well, and at work and stuff. I just want a single translation unit when developing. In the future, if your boss or the company forces you to divide things into separate translation units for whatever reason, then you can do it. But I personally do a single translation unit in order to compile faster. Okay. So that's what I want to do. And before we continue developing the text editor, I am going to go ahead and make that happen. Okay. So let's open up our main file, right? Our main.c. Okay. And we're going to split the window and we're going to look for the spellchecker.h file. I don't know if you guys remember this from the very beginning. And all I have is some pound defines that are being shared across translation units. But since I'm going to have one translation unit now, why don't we just go ahead and put this on the main file. Sorry for the bell. Okay. And let's just put it, I would say here. Correct. Let's save that. And then let's open up txt.h and then txt.c. Oh, okay. Well, you can save that if you want to. txt.c. K-Knuckle says your voice is enough. Whatever. txt.c. And we don't really need anything from txt.h except for this definition here. So let's yank that out. There we go. So that's cool. And I would say that's about it. What I'm going to do is open up main.c and pound include the things that txt needs as well. So we would start with assert assert.h, ctype stdio, okay, and then pound include math.h. Okay, so we have assert, ctype stdio, string.h, math.h. No, try and put on the music again, hopefully. Alright. Is the music and voice combination okay? I don't want the music to be louder. Okay. This is some nice space music. Okay. Anyway, so assert, ctype, std. Okay, so I'm missing. If the music needs to be lower, please let me know. Okay, K-Knuckles is saying I like the music to still be quieter. Well, how about that? I think that's actually pretty good, hopefully. Okay. And I will get rid of this. Okay. So that's pretty cool. And I will also get rid of this. And then place these things. Let me also delete this. All of this. Okay. Now what's going to happen? I'm going to pound include txt.c here. And that might be enough. So go ahead and close that. And now let's open up our build file, our bat script. Okay. Now, Now, interestingly, I no longer have to specify, all the C files that I need. I can just say, main.c. I'm gonna go ahead, now that I'm here, rename spell checker to text editor, because now that's what we're doing properly. And now we gotta try and check if it works. So if I do a build, it seems to have worked, right? With only a single translation unit, so that's actually pretty quick. And we run, and now we are developing using a Unity build or a single translation unit build. Okay, I don't know what to call it actually, but whatever. This is what I need to do. All right. Miblo says, I don't think the volume has changed at all. Okay. If you guys think the music, the awesome space music, is too awesome for you guys, I will comply. I will comply and get rid of it, okay? And just leave my voice, my boring voice, over to you guys. Okay. Sean McGrath is saying, I definitely like the term STU build. So he's saying, we should probably call it, STU build. I like it too, actually. I think. There you go. There you go. Okay, so cool stuff. So yeah, I already explained this, and we just did it. So now we only have a single translation unit when programming. So that's pretty cool. Now, people are saying there's like a volume slider here. On OBS. It says there's a volume slider on OBS for your desktop sound. So is it like in settings, audio, general, coding, maybe broadcast settings. Nope, I don't see it. It's like a microphone noise gate. Well, what can you do? You mean this thing? Oh, let me put it on the other monitor. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see it. I see it. Okay. I'll just lower that then. This thing. So, like here. Now it's lower. So now it's at 40%. Hopefully that's good enough. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Let's continue programming. Okay, well, those who were complaining civilly say that it's much better. So that's good. Let's continue then. All right. So now that we have a Unity build, let's build it again. Testing, okay. And what we're gonna do now is, when you backspace, we want to be able to actually go back to the first line. Okay, and for that, a few things need to happen. Let's see. Okay, so the first issue that we have, if you look at this variable here, you have last space index -1. In this variable, all it does, it's that it's going to store the latest position of the latest space that you pressed. This is what helps us be able to, copy the last word from the first line or whatever line is going to overlap, right, and push it to the next line. So if we run it again, this is what I'm saying. So if I press, ASDF space, right, or let's do Abner space, right, then let me minimize this. Then last space index is now going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be 5, and that just keeps track of the last space that I've pressed, right? Abner is space, right? So now it's actually 6, 7, 8. Okay, it's typing stuff on the screen and is about to go overboard. So now when I press D, right, it's about to go overboard. So when I press the letter D, what's going to happen is my program finds what the last space index is, which would be this space right here. So it's going to be pointing to this space here, the position of that space, right? And from there all the way up to R, or D when it comes, it'll copy that into the next line buffer, right? It'll clear this over here and copy it over to there. So there you go. So that's what's happening. Okay. Now we do have a problem, because now if I press backspace what I was expecting to happen was for overboard to go back to the first line, okay? Because it's no longer, the entire text is no longer overlapping if I put it all in just one single line, okay? So what do I want to do? Well, if you guys notice, when I copy over this word to the next one, let me show you what happens. Let me close this, otherwise I won't be able to. Okay. What happens is here. Oh, and I already have a to-do for this. I forgot. So have a look at this variable. Like, this is the area where I am, doing the word wrapping. Okay. I find the overlapping word. Here it is. Which, by the way, on line 188, I can go ahead. Whoops. Gosh darn it. I can go ahead and call this just overlapping word, because it's the same thing that's being pointed to. Anyway, I am resetting last space index, and I already said, we'll have trouble if we try to go back to the first line, and that's actually true. What I want to do is be able to keep track of the last space pressed in multiple lines, right? Not just a single variable for it. So what does that mean? If I run again, okay, I'm being lazy here. Okay, overboard, perfect. Okay, so when I press backspace, I want overboard to go back to the first line. It's not doing that. So, but I need to know where am I going to place, the beginning of the word. So where am I going to place the O on the first line? Because I don't have that information anymore. Like, I don't know, or the program doesn't know where overboard should be copied to on the first line. Like in which part. It's going to be like on position number 13, 15, 28. We don't know, right? Because we deleted or we cleared, the last space index. We don't have that information anymore because we're always updating, the space to new lines, but we're not keeping track of the old, the old spaces. Okay. What that means is I want to go over to last space index here, line 104, I suppose. And I can do, let me put this over here. Okay, line 102. Let's transform this last space index variable into a last space index array. Okay, that is also going to be max lines, in that we're going to memset last space index to -1, and it's going to be max lines long. Okay, -1 means, you know, there's nothing going on right now. There's no space stored on this line. So this is kind of weird. You know, this is not something I would do in the final implementation, but it works for now. So, you know, what's happening here is that I am now going to be able to store the last space that was pressed on a specific line. So even if I go to the next line, right, the last space pressed on the previous line will be stored. It will be persistent, right? It's going to stay there. So when I backspace and I want to, you know, put that word back into the first line, because now I can, I know where to put it because I've stored, you know, that information of, you know, what the last space was. Okay. There are other ways to do this, but, you know, this is one way to do it. So let's go ahead. Let's build and make sure that this is correct. Okay, so we have some warnings, line 166. Well, of course we're going to have warnings because now it's no longer a single variable, right? It is now an array of last space positions, correct? Hold on, I'm setting memory. This is no longer like a character thing like I used to do. This is an unsigned 32. So, you know, each unsigned 32 is going to be size of E32 times maximum lines. Okay. Now let's go ahead and find all the last space indices. Like here, last space index is not going to be last space index in the current line. Okay, you see that? Now where else am I using last space index? Well, now I don't need to do this. I don't need to clear anything. Okay. Here I also have to say last space index is no longer a variable, so, you know, I have to specify the last space index of which line, right? Same thing here. Line index, there we go. Now where else am I using last space index? Let's go ahead and make a quick search. Alright, so it seems to be working. Cool. Let's have a look at the chat. Somebody's saying I probably just want to do, hold on, the highlighter's annoying. They're asking me if I want to do this. This depends on the, oh, never mind. I think Sean already answered this. Yeah, so it depends on the compiler. I want to say that, you know, older compilers, Sean's right, only accept it when you're doing like 0, when you're clearing to 0, and not when you're doing like -1 or other weird values. Okay, and I kind of want this program to be compatible with older compilers. I'm not sure if that's gonna happen or not, but I'm gonna try at least. Okay, now let's build. Okay, now it should still work as before. What I did was, you know, make an array of last space indices instead of just a single variable. So let's go ahead and run it. things should still be working as always. There should not be any issues. That's perfect. Okay. Well, we still have the issue of like I backspace and nothing happens. I can't go back to the first line, but now I have the information to actually make that happen, right? So, Dusk is asking, you know, what if you start writing a giant word that's bigger than the available space? What would happen then? Okay, so Dusk is asking, what happens if I am typing things without a space, right? Without any space. So it's a gigantic word, and I go over the boundary. Oh! That's actually not a difficult thing to solve, and we're gonna do that afterwards. So once I have word wrapping working, we're gonna deal with the case where, you know, I go over the line and there's no spaces for me to use, right? We'll do it right after this. So now where was I? Here. Now look at this. I'm saying, you know, move word to next line if line is too full, right? You know, I'm gonna actually do what Dusk is asking. Dusk, I'm gonna listen to you. You know, what happens if I'm typing a lot of stuff but I'm not pressing space, right? What happens then? I am not dealing with that, right? Because if you look at the code here, I'm saying, hey, if the line width is greater than a text box, then I'm assuming there's an overlapping word that I can copy over because there are spaces. But what if there is no space? What if it's just one gigantic word, you know, that a user is being silly about it and just typing an extremely long line with no spaces? Then what happens then, right? And that's also another interesting question, because what if I'm typing in Japanese? Like, there's no concept of spaces in Japanese, right? But, you know, right now I'm constraining things to English, so I'm assuming there are words, right? But, you know, there will be chances where somebody's typing something and there's no space going on. You know, what do I do then, right? So what I can do with the new information that I have, because now I have this thing, you know, I'm storing the last space pressed on each line, right? Now that I have that information, I can do stuff like this. Whoa, what happened here? Okay. If last space index at line index is not equal to -1. Okay, so I'm saying, hey, if the width of the line, let me go ahead and run it again. I'm going to be doing this a lot. Here we go. Let's keep typing. Okay, so I'm asking, you know, if the width of the line is greater than the text box, and that's going to happen soon, right? I'm asking, you know, is there a space stored? You know, did the player, or I'm sorry, the user type a space at any point? If that's true, then the position of the space can't be -1. So I'm checking. If it's not -1, that means that the user typed a space at some point in time, and then we're going to look for the last word, right, which would be the set of characters up until, you know, the very last space, right, and do the word wrapping. Otherwise, we have to do something different. Okay. Let me. Whoa. Okay. So otherwise, what we're going to do is. Otherwise, what does that mean? Otherwise, there is no space, so we can just copy the last letter of that first line, right? That's overlapping, that's like going over the boundary. Copy it over to the next line and just erase that that last character from that first line. For now, that's good enough. So I could do what I could do is, access my text buffer on the current line. I'm sorry, on the next line, like that, and say that at position 0, it is going to be equal to the last character, or the overlapping character of that first line. So lines, line index, character index -1. Okay, and then I'm gonna go to line index, character index -1, and say that that's like that, and increase the line index. That's one way to do it. And then the character, whoa, don't do that for me. And then the character index will be 1. Okay, let's see if that actually works. Okay, so now I'm not typing any spaces, and let's see what happens if I go overboard. It stopped working. Now hold on. This is not my fault. It's saying spellchecker.executable has stopped working. But it should have worked. Like what I wrote should have worked. But if you remember earlier, I went to my batch script and I changed the executable name to text editor, and it's no longer spellchecker. Okay? So what does this mean? I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Quick break. Let me close the program. Ugh. Wait, I should probably put on some music while I do that. Okay. So a quick look at the chat. Yeah, so these are wrist braces were sent to me by Casey Muratori. He is the streamer for Handmade Hero. And yeah, they're no longer in production, but you can buy wrist braces from Amazon, eBay. They're around. It's just that this particular product or brand is not available anymore. And since I'm my moderator for him, he sent this for me and the other moderators. Very cool of him, actually. But yeah, they just avoid repetitive strain injury. And at first, I wasn't very used to them, but now it's finally, catching on to me, and I like it very much. I feel much better when I'm programming using these things, right? So. Okay, so let's continue. I have to open up my run folder and no longer call spell checker, but instead call text editor. And let me confirm that. Yeah. So build again. There you go. And run. Okay. Now let's try this again. So I am typing things without pressing space. Let's see where that leads us. Let's see. There we go. So hopefully Dusk, who was the lovely viewer on the chat who asked about, what happens when you go over the line boundary but you haven't pressed space. Well, now it's being handled. You see? There you go. So that's something. And the other thing should be, like, even if I press space now, then it should still work. You see? So let me keep typing here. So that's good. So both cases are being handled right now. If I press space, pressing space, and go here, there you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. Alright, so now that that's being handled, let's think about the next thing, which was, well, what it's supposed to do at the very beginning, which is when I'm typing these things, right? And I backspace, I want, when I backspace, I want this last word to be on the first line, okay? Which is what I wanted to do originally. So let's go ahead and do that. For now, I'm just going to put a block in here and say, check if we can collapse two lines into one again. Okay? So that's what I want to do. Fiery Drake, you are correct. I am reserving one character for the orange caret for the text cursor. Now let's see. Check if we can collapse two lines into one again. Different ways to doing this. I'm going to say, first of all, go ahead and check if we have more than one line. That's what this check is doing here. Again, for those who are new viewers, line index is just the position of the current line, okay, of the text buffer. So here, this is line number 1, which for line index would be 0. So, because we're counting from 0, so I'm saying, if 0, which would be this first line, then I'm not going to collapse anything because there's only one line, right? But if I press enter, line index will now be 1, okay? Which means anything that's not 0 will evaluate to true, which means, there is more than one line. And if there is, we're going to check if we can collapse those two lines into one line again, okay? Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm saying, okay, if line index, then, let's start. Jesus, I forget to turn off caps lock. It just makes my life difficult. Okay, on Vim. I32 previous line width is going to be Again, I love the fact that we're doing things monospace because it just makes things easier for now. So line, hold on, that would be glyph. Actually, not even that. It'll be text box dot width. So the width of the text box divided by the glyph width, right? That's not true. Hold on. It would be the length of the previous line times the glyph width. Okay. Miblo is saying, Abner, go ahead and map caps lock to escape. I think that's a very good idea. Actually, I've been meaning to do it. So yeah, I'm probably gonna do that after the stream. Okay, and then the current line width is gonna be the length of the string times the glyph width. And now I'm gonna check, if the previous line width plus the current line width is less than the text box width, then go ahead and collapse two lines, collapse the two lines, and I'm gonna check that it's correct. You should collapse the two lines in line. Okay, let's build, let's run. Let's see. Wait, I need the shell open. Let's see. And now it's telling me, yeah, you should collapse the two lines. So that's good. Now the question is, how do I go ahead and collapse those two lines? Well, first I need to find what that word is. So I'm going to say, word equals to that. So I'm saying, okay, go ahead and let's find that word. Let me run the program from here because I don't want to have issues with. Okay. All right. So take a look at this section of the code with what I'm typing. So I'm typing things, typing. Okay. So when I press backspace, this last word should be able to go back to the first line. Okay, so I can collapse the two lines. And all I'm saying to the program right now is, okay, go ahead and find that word that you can collapse back to the first line, which would be ASD. Okay, when I press backspace, ASD, can go back to the first line. They're allowed to, right? So I'm just finding that word. I'm pointing to it, and I'm gonna copy it over to the first line after the last space index, and then I'm gonna erase the entire second line. Okay. So what I would do is, do mem copy. Okay, I'm gonna copy the contents of. Okay, again, let's do it backwards. So I'm gonna copy the contents of the current line that I'm going to collapse. Okay, copy the contents of the current line that I'm going to collapse over to so copy the contents of the line that I'm going to collapse from from here over to the previous line. And that's not true. It will be over to the previous line plus last space index, line index minus 1 plus 1. Okay, I'll explain this in a bit. Just let me make sure that this works. Okay. And now I'm gonna clear this line to 0. Something else is happening though, which would be that the character index has to be what does the character index have to be now? It would be probably this. Maybe -1? I don't know. I do not know. 9. This might work. Seems to be correct to me. Okay. And now we run. Let's see. There we go. You guys seeing this? You guys see what is happening here? Okay. Let me run it again. Whether or not it's backspace, 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 backspace. There you go. Okay. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Let me do one last check. Seems to be good to me. I can probably avoid setting the memory to 0 on the entire length of the line because it's going to be less than max line length. Obviously, it's going to be less than that. Okay. What I can do is let's see. Yeah, I mean that'll work, but it feels, you know, it's less clear, okay? And I'm not clearing that much, so I don't think it matters. So let's just leave it like that. Okay. Now let's try it in Spanish. La vecina de mi casa, que se llama Luisa, se cree que es enfermera de primera clase, pero no sabe nada. Pero en realidad no sabe nada. Okay? And if we backspace that, when I start deleting the word enfermera, which means this word means nurse, it should collapse. Yep, it collapsed over to the first line. Okay. So that's pretty cool. Alright, so we did a single translation unit build, and we were able to collapse, you know, 2 lines into one when it's possible to do so. We're also word wrapping as always, you know, that works as always. Cool stuff, right? And we should also be able to when there are no spaces going on, there you go. you can't have word wrapping, so it just goes ahead and continues typing. I could do what people call horizontal scrolling, which means just like Notepad would do. So if I open up, try to look for Notepad, I think, let me see if this is true. Yeah, so it keeps scrolling horizontally until you press enter, and then you can continue. I am not going to do that. I'm not sure I want that to happen. Like, I like the idea of a text box that just specifies the boundaries and it continues. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna do horizontal scrolling. Alright. Oh boy. So we are almost out of time, which sucks because what I wanted to do next was to be able to move this blinking orange caret by pressing the arrow keys, right? And just be able to move up and down, left and right, and insert things in the middle and type things in the middle of a sentence, right? Or edit things, right? Because now this is a problem, because if I'm typing hello there, I will never misspell a word in my life. Okay, now what happens here? Well, if I want to fix this misspelling, which should have been highlighted in red, once I have a spell checker happening, if I want to fix this word, I have to backspace all the way to misspell, and at this point I completely forgot what I typed after that. Okay, so that's why I need to have like arrow keys in order to move around the text space. So I have to do that.